People will say
start off with 3.5 grams.
𝙬𝙜𝙜 as it is colloquially known. Today, however, in the spirit of harm reduction and just keeping it real with y'all, I am not going to give you that advice.
Let's go.
Hey y'all, it's Chrysanthus. Welcome back to the realm and thanks for joining me today. Today's video has been highly requested by y'all. This video is going to be a resource for magic mushroom dosages, specifically for your first trip. I just have to say, y'all have shown so much love for my first magic mushroom trip video, so much so that I cannot help but to return some of that love in the form of today's video and helping y'all out a bit with your first magic mushroom trip. Let's get into it. Here's the most popular comment I got on that video. What was your dose? Because so many of y'all have asked this question, I can only imagine that I blanked on disclosing this information in that video. That's my bad. My bad. And before we get into it, I'd just like to add that today's video is for educational and harm reduction purposes. I am not encouraging anyone to try plant medicine or any new substances. I'm just saying, y'all do your own research and make up your own mind about these things. Let's trip safely. Now, if y'all don't know this, magic mushrooms have been studied as a cure for anxiety, depression, PTSD, the list goes on. There are many valid reasons why y'all at home might be curious about plant medicine. This current magic mushroom practice came to the US by way of Oaxaca, Mexico.
A brief mushy history.
Where an indigenous curandera, Maria Sabina, was tricked into sharing the practice of magic mushrooms and lied to by a writer of Life magazine. She had to face an unspeakable amount of consequences for this, for putting her trust into this person. And for everyone who's interested in starting their own magic mushroom practice, I say this, please do your research of the history. Please know how it came to us. How it got to us was effed. It was no bueno. I'm dropping a few links in my description, and I also plan on producing a video very soon discussing the roots of magic mushrooms, as well as Maria Sabina. So flash forward, it's 2021, and maybe you, my friend, have gotten your hands on some magic mushies, and you're wondering about proper dosage. So, magic mushrooms are typically measured in grams, at least where I am they are, and let's get into defining dosage. So, according to Double Blind, please follow them on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. They're an incredible publication. A microdose is defined as 0.1 to 0.5 grams. A low dose is defined as 0.5 to 2 grams. A moderate dose is defined as 2 to 3.5 grams. And a high dose is defined as 3.5 to 5 plus grams. Now, hitting that 5 plus grams mark and climbing up the beanstalk from there, y'all are looking at more of a heroic dose, which we're not gonna get in today because that is extremely not recommended for first-time journeyers.
And I ate the bag, the whole bag when I was walking.
How many ounces you think?
Well, it was about, I know it was about a half an ounce to an ounce. So I mean, yeah. So we're talking. This is the elevator ride beyond the 10th floor. You know. So
8 to 16 grams. Is that what you're
it was
talking about?
it was probably on the order about 20 grams. You know. So no. But I didn't know.
The typical advice that you will see on Dude Bro Psychedelic YouTube and sites like 𝙈𝙜𝙜𝙜 and Reddit are 3.5 grams for your first dose. People will say
Start off with 3.5 grams.
𝙬𝙜𝙜𝙜 as it is colloquially known. Today, however, in the spirit of harm reduction and just keeping it real with y'all, I am not going to give you that advice. Here's my first piece of advice.
Let's go.
There's no rush. Work your way up to that 3.5, that 5 plus, that heroic, whatever dosage you eventually want to get to, work your way up. You don't need to start your first trip on that dose. Now, there are other factors for whether you should even be trying magic mushrooms in the first place. They are not for everyone. Despite what you may have heard, they are not for everyone. Other factors include having a family history of psychotic disorders, in example, schizophrenia. If you do have this family history, you are at an increased risk for a psychotic episode with your first mushroom trip. I'd say proceed with extreme caution. Potentially, do not proceed. There are also factors to this risk, like how closely are these people related to you? Know your family history. A second factor, have you tried psychedelics before? A lot of folks have tried LSD, for example, before they have tried mushrooms. For me, it was the other way around, with years in between. If you've tried psychedelics before, especially stronger psychedelics, LSD, DMT, those kinds of things, rather than, cannabis, then you might be set to be comfortable enough to have a slightly higher dose than the low dose that I will recommend. Cannabis is technically a psychedelic. Magic mushrooms are really not like cannabis. It's a whole different child. In their indigenous context, where they come from, magic mushrooms are lovingly referred to as the children. It's a whole different child. If you think mushrooms are going to be analogous to something legal like alcohol, they are nothing like alcohol. I can't really think of even one or two ways in which they're very much like alcohol. Not only are they non-addictive, but you have, for the most part, on typical doses, pretty solid motor control. Like, you don't feel out of control, you can walk, you can sit down, get up, whatever you need to do. Obviously, do not try to drive a vehicle or anything like that because your depth perception can be affected. But yeah, it's not like alcohol. And then another factor is, how strong are these mushrooms? So the mushroom that I know is typical on the East Coast is 𝙈𝙖𝙜𝙤𝙤 𝙤𝙤𝙘, but it would be a solid idea to get the picture of strength from whoever you're sourcing this medicine from.
Strains of mushroom can vary dramatically in potency. It can be as much as 1 milligram of psilocybin per gram of dried shrooms to 12 milligrams of psilocybin per gram of dried shrooms. That's insane. That means that it would take 12 grams of psilocybin mushrooms of the kind that have 1 milligram per gram to equal 1 gram of the kind that have 12 milligram per gram. That's a massive jump.
So are these mushrooms stronger than usual? Are they weaker than usual? I know where I live, a lot of mushrooms have been popping up around my city that are way stronger than usual and actually would take half the dose. So you just want to know that, and you want to ask whoever you're sourcing this from what the potency is. And I will say this, you want to weigh out your mushrooms every time. It's not something that you can easily eyeball. In fact, eyeballing it probably takes a lot of practice to be able to do something like that. And even with eyeballing it, you can go wrong. I've gone wrong eyeballing it before. I've sent myself to galaxies very far away when I meant to just have a nice little Netflix and chill type of trip. Don't eyeball it, y'all. So now that we've talked about factors, let's talk about recommended dose. As I mentioned to y'all, that 3.5 dose that you'll typically hear on the nets, on psychedelic YouTube, etc., that's not going to be my recommended dose for y'all starting out today. I would recommend sitting with a low dose for your first trip. A low dose, again, being 0.5 to 2 grams. But I think y'all are safe to do 1 to even 2.5 grams for your first trip. 0.5, you might not really feel it. And I think 1 to 2.5 grams is a super safe place to start. And again, I'm making these videos for not just like fun and resources and education, but for harm reduction. So this is the harm reduction amount, 1 to 2.5 grams for your first dose, y'all. Now, if you're sitting there watching this thinking,
I want more, I need more.
Maybe I've tried psychedelics before, so I don't see why I need to adhere to this low dose starting off for magic mushrooms. All right, I know y'all are out there. So I have another dose for you. If you're not wanting to work your way up to a moderate dose or a high dose, if this might be something you just try once in your life and you want to get the full effect of it, and all of those other factors that I mentioned line up for you, then here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna recommend y'all the dosage that I took for my personal first trip because I was ready. I was there. But again, please take into consideration that this can go horribly wrong and you could have a horribly overwhelming time, as is very reported with people who take this dosage as their first trip. So know that.
After speaking with over 20 mushroom users during my research, I learned many of them did 3.5 grams for their first time and ended up having completely overwhelming experiences that they weren't prepared for.
For me, fortunately, that was not the case and I was fine. My friend measured this out for me and I believe that the amount was 3.5 grams for my first trip. So if all of those factors line up, again, family history, maybe you have experience in these realms, all that kind of good stuff, I would recommend a 3.5 grams of an experience.
Please note, this is for a minority of folks and can still lead to an adverse trip if you're not fully ready.
Now, that is with the given that you can do this safely. And let's get into a little bit more of safety.
Yeehaw! More psychedelic safety.
We are not going to trip alone on magic mushrooms for the first time. In fact, tripping alone is seriously not recommended. For beginners, especially, you have to be at a certain level of knowing the medicine, having reverence for the medicine, understanding the medicine, and that takes years and years and years to get to before you can think about or start tripping alone. We're gonna find a trip sitter. Ideally, this would be someone who's experienced with psychedelics. This could be a friend. This could be someone who you're close to, who you trust purely, and this is ideally gonna be someone who is not also tripping, because you're having your first trip, and it's gonna leave space for you, and it's gonna leave space for, adverse events that could occur, and the space that you would need for those adverse events. This can look like being talked down from calling 911. A lot of the times when someone experiences psychedelics for the first time, they're not in the proper set and setting, which we'll talk about. Their anxious mind takes over, and the only thing they could think of to do is to call 911. Only you can know if you're truly ready for that. I can't give you any kind of advice here that would make you feel more or less ready for that. I can just say, if you don't know if you're ready for that on your spirit, work up to it. Work up to that 3.5 grams. It's no rush. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I am 𝙗𝙗𝙗 on Instagram and TikTok. I designed this dope Keep It Trippy shirt that's up on my thread list right now. I do all of these videos and all of this channel and my TikToks and all that kind of stuff alone. I am a one-woman band and my channel is not yet monetized. So this type of financial support means a lot, and I really appreciate y'all who rep the realm in real life. If you feel even a little bit more ready for your first magic mushroom trip after watching this video, please consider subscribing to this channel. I'm working on, and I've put out a bunch of other magic mushroom videos, and there are more resources here for you, and you are welcome. You are welcome to be here. Thank you for being here. You can also check out this playlist, the trippy stuff, if you just want a fast track to my magic mushroom videos. Thanks again so much for watching, and be sure to keep it trippy.